Today's video is on Argo blockchain. As you know, I'm a big believer in Argo blockchain and everything that Peter Wall and the team are doing there. Yesterday evening, we had a live stream launch interview between Meet Kevin, fellow content creator on YouTube, and Meet Peter Wall himself. I felt that Meet Kevin maybe perhaps didn't have too much of an idea of Argo blockchain. Obviously, he's very knowledgeable of the space and he's had Hut 8 and stuff on prior to this, but he had Argo on Peter on yesterday, and I felt that he was asking questions that perhaps a new investor or someone that was interested in joining Argo blockchain would ask. We're going to snip up some of the parts that I feel were worth watching. Again, it was about an hour. I would actually recommend anyone that is interested in Argo or any shareholders that are currently in Argo, watch it. I felt there were snippets here that maybe give us a wee bit more meat, answered a few uncertainties that we didn't know of, and some exciting things that I'll get into in a moment. This was a great advertisement for Argo. Whether it was a paid promotion, I don't know. It probably was in some respect, but it doesn't matter. Meet Kevin has a huge following. It's great exposure for us. You know, it's one thing after another. At the moment, we had the Nasdaq ringing at the bell, which they talked about in the video, and then we have this. This adds to a wide range of retail investors. And Meet Kevin is someone that I would watch maybe from time to time for the opening bell, end of play, stuff like that. He is very, very bullish in sort of growth stocks. So he's that kind of space, and that to me is the kind of clientele that Argo would want to get exposure to. And as I said, Kevin really puts himself down very well. He's the kind of guy that, you know, you just like to sit down somewhere and just have a good laugh with him, you know. He comes across like that. And I feel that Peter Wall, I love this guy. He's just came across so well. He's just the man in my eyes. He can't do no real wrong. But there was some great stuff about the future acquisitions, stuff in 2022 that I didn't really know of too much. We know about the Pluto WonderFi. I'll share the link here to those videos where I talk about the two acquisitions that they've done, the investments that they've done rather. And he talked about, you know, further ones coming in the new year. He's excited about that. We got more news about the project size, the plant cost, which is a lot of you know, uncertainty about that, and I've done a video prior to that as well. You can go in and check it out. But he has given us a bit more of a breakdown on that, and it's confirmed the thoughts that I previously had anyway. He also talked about collaborations, not so much hosting, but collaborations potential for other miners to maybe come into the space that would have maybe similar arrangements to be able to use their Texas space. He talks about power being the most valuable thing, not the chips, not the supply of the machines. Power is the difficult thing for miners at the moment. We have abundance of that at the Texas site. Like I said, we'll get into different bits and I'll snip it up and I'll come back with further comments, but I think Meet Kevin was very impressed with Peter Wall, and it'll be interesting to see going forward. I am a subscriber to his channel. I do watch his videos. Perhaps when he does his market opening bell, just going to keep an eye on his watch list to see if Argo makes it. If it does make it, and maybe there's a bit more talking about it, to me this is a great thing and well worth the publicity. Yeah, coincidence. Yeah, coincidence.
You're going to want to use liquid. It's the most efficient way to cool machines. And so as these mining rigs get more and more powerful and use, you know, they generate a lot of heat, you need to clear that heat out. And the best way to do it is through moving liquid through them. It's been a challenge for a lot of miners. They haven't felt confident to do it at a large scale. We're very fortunate. We have an incredible tech team. We've built our own immersion system with a US-based manufacturer, which we're going to, you know, hopefully share with the world in 2022. There was a lot of people who didn't buy Ethereum mining rigs, including us, because this proof of stake transition is happening in the future. And those machines are going to not be as profitable in the future when that transition takes place. So it's a bet you're making that you're going to get your value back from those machines prior to the proof of stake transition. Now, Bitcoin's not moving to proof of stake anytime soon. So we know that an S19 we buy this year or next year is going to be, we're going to be able to run it for 4 or 5 years or maybe longer in immersion because the machines are so well protected. It's not the case with Ethereum. We're also super interested in and we'll be talking more in the future about what we're calling our non-mining activities, Kevin. So we think that there's this enormous wave, this transition that's happening in the world of finance, and, you know, DeFi, Web 3.0, all of these projects are really gaining steam. We were an early investor in Polkadot back in 2019.
Nice.
You might have heard of, you know, you probably know DOT. It's done, I think it's like 40x since we invested in it. So we think, you know, our team is able to identify early stage projects. And like I said, we haven't fully announced that yet, but we'll be leaning more into kind of the non-mining side of the business in 2022.
So that's interesting, just the way he sort of talks about that. Really, really buzzing and really excited for 2022. So we'll be keen to see what happens there.
Now, where are you going to come up with the funding? I was just working on pulling up your balance sheet, but it's going to be expensive to buy all of these ASICs. I know you bought 20,000. Have you already funded those, or are those just planned to be bought? I know you had a senior note offering, so maybe that helped in November.
Yeah, so essentially there's three ways for us to access capital to grow. And obviously growth is super important for a cryptocurrency miner, for any company in the space, given how quickly the space is moving. So number one, we can sell Bitcoin. We did that a lot in 2019, 2020 to cover operating costs, to buy new machines. We didn't particularly like it, because who wants to sell Bitcoin when it's appreciating so quickly? But it is a lever we can pull on. The other two levers are debt and equity. You mentioned the note. Or the bond that we did. So we did a baby bond this quarter, just a little while ago. We raised over 40 million through the baby bond. We've done a Bitcoin backed loan. We've done machine financing. We've done mortgages against our facilities in Quebec. So debt is a realistic opportunity, and become even more realistic given the credibility that this space is gaining. People think that crypto mining company debt is more valuable than it was 2 years ago, where no one would give us a loan because it was such a new space, right? And then the third is equity. We've done 3 equity raises this year. We did one in January, one in March, and then we did one with our NASDAQ IPO in September. And those have all kind of helped build up our treasury. So we have those 3 levers that we can pull on as we grow.
Finance side of things, look, nothing new. We know of the ways we've been able to raise the finance. We have done that loan recently. We have also done sort of dilution, if you want to call it that, but the equity raising through via the NASDAQ, and we can sell Bitcoin. And I suppose the way you've always got to look at it, and the way I keep telling everybody to look at it, is if you're investing in Argo, you're not investing for 6 months, you're investing for the next 6 years, 10 years, whatever. Bitcoin's only going to go up. So to sell 1 Bitcoin now for $50,000 seems very, very silly, when you know that Bitcoin maybe in 5 years could be worth $500,000. So it stops us shareholders maybe feeling a bit of the pain, but if you're in it for the long journey, you shouldn't be put off by it.
Now, do you ever have concerns that in the event, let's say Bitcoin goes back to 20,000, 19,000, something like that, that your ability to operate or fundraise might be impaired? I mean, especially if you have Bitcoin-backed loans, would those be at risk of potentially a margin call?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, our Bitcoin-backed loans are pretty, not super material in the kind of grand scheme of our overall Bitcoin holdings. We've been doing this, Kevin, for 4 years. It's a roller coaster. We've been through the crypto winter. We know if things get lean, we know how to operate in a lean way.
Any reassurances of Bitcoin dropping, which there's people that in some of the Facebook groups that, don't ever mention the 30 grand. I'm always trying to be realistic here, guys. Bitcoin could easily fall to 30 grand. And I like the fact that he's even saying, if it was to fall to 20 grand, they can ride the storm and be stable throughout all this, which is exactly what you want to hear, especially with loans and agreements out there. So that gave me peace of mind, because that was a risk for me.
How can an individual investor looking at the different companies differentiate y'all? What sets you apart? I know you've got the immersion facility in Texas. How is somebody supposed to look and understand those things? Any key tips you could give folks?
Yeah, so I think, and like I said, we've been doing this for 4 years. And I think that there's 2 things that really stand out for me in terms of risk factors. One is, as much as possible, you want to, own the real estate. You want to own your own infrastructure. There's a difference between renting and owning. Making sure that you're fully in control of your power cost, of your infrastructure, is super important. If you're gonna thrive long term in this space, you need to be able to control those things. I mean, there's no one that I know of in the space that has an opportunity for 800 megawatts of capacity at the kind of low cost of power that we have there. The second is ESG, Kevin. I think that if you're burning fossil fuels to make Bitcoin, I think that you're vulnerable to potential, regulation in the future, depending on the jurisdiction you're in. I think that, I think it's a risk to the company. I also think investors don't like it.
Clean energy, something that I've been bullish on this channel for ages. I really, really love the climate positive, and I'll share the video here to my climate positive video. Like I said, this is one of the huge factors that I've invested in Argo. As you know, I have my global clean playlist. I literally deal with mostly 80% of the stocks that I'm invested in are all to do with renewable. I feel that is the future. I'm very passionate about it in my own life. Got my solar panels, love my recycling. That is probably fundamentally the biggest reason that I'm invested in Argo. And I think Peter Walsh hit the nail on the head. These other miners maybe haven't made that step yet, but they will have to make that step through regulations to meet our CO2 emissions reductions. All of this, Argo don't need to worry about it. They've already done that. They're at that point.
How far along are you on that? Is it hey, we're in permitting? You break ground?
Yeah, so we just put out a video. You can look on our Twitter page. We're about 50% complete for the project. So the support beams are up. And the last little bit of skin on the outside of the building will be up by the end of next week.
So he's saying we're 50% done. We're on target for our launch date in March 2022. Everything's going to perfectly to plan by the looks of it. Lovely video there as well. Really excited about the site.
It's 320 acres, but it's actually 160. We have an option on the other 160. So we haven't closed the option on the second piece, but there's lots of space to kind of rinse and repeat and continue to add capacity. So this will be 200 megawatts in that space right there. And
not including the land, what does it cost you to build out this 200 megawatts? Because you got to do the immersion and the ASICs. I mean, the ASICs are expensive, all of that. Do you have a ballpark?
So we haven't announced publicly the final number. We haven't disclosed that to the market. But what's the best way to think about costing?
Initial estimate?
I mean, we have been on, so let's say between 1 to 2 billion to build out 800 megawatts, but then divide that by 4, right? For the first, for the first 200 megawatts. So somewhere in that kind of ballpark.
250 to 500 million.
Pretty much saying about 400 million per unit to build. We knew that. We kind of thought it was going to be done in phase. The 2 billion scared a lot of people, and rightly so. Of course it would, because we wouldn't have that capital right now. But let's face it, say in 2 years' time, we're building more of the plant and all this. Bitcoin, hopefully, fingers crossed, will be a lot more. So we could sell a bit of Bitcoin. We could take out further backed loans on Bitcoin, which Peter Wall talked about in the video. He talks about the future. He's talking about mortgage payments, people taking out mortgage payments backed on loans. So there's a lot of different options. The future landscape is yet to be set, but there is a lot of changes coming. And I feel that the equity situation, you might have to take a step back to go forward, and I'm okay with that because we're in this for the long hold.
The Chinese miners really coming over to North America. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And people are knocking at our door to try to get into our facility because we got access to power and we're building out, a world-class immersion system.
Like a hotel.
Yeah, I mean, if you look
hotels.
You're like a hotel. I mean, there's companies that do this, right? Compute North, Core Scientific, they are hosts. So if you bought, let's say you've got $50 million and you want to put up, 25 or 30 megawatts of machines to run, you call up Core Scientific and you say, hey, can you find me some hosting and, what's your rate? And so Core looks around at their various facilities and they say, sure, we've got a spot for you in July of 2022. You can install machines and we'll give you a 3 or 4 year contract. Those are really hard to find right now, Kevin. There's Core, I think, is booked out for all of 2022. There's just not capacity for hosts to give out space. So we're not interested in being hosts, but we're always open to business commercial relationships that make sense. So if there's a partner out there or a collaborator out there that comes to us and says, hey, we need X amount of megawatts. Are you guys interested in being a collaborator at your space? We'll listen to them.
And the hosting in the future, the collaborations, all of that sounds so exciting. I really love this interview. Really do recommend going in and watching the full thing. That's just snippets of it. I thought I'd bring that to your attention. Great exposure. Loved everything about this here. Onwards and upwards, as Peter would like to say. Buzzing for Argo blockchain, buzzing for the future, and whatever tailwinds we may face in the coming months is nothing compared to where we're going to end up in the future. So hopefully that has been a good video for you. If you have enjoyed it, please like, subscribe. Really helps me grow the channel. I'll catch you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. Check out the links down below for all my free shares, crypto. You can join the Elite Discord and the course. It's all down there. Click on the link. You can check the curriculum, see if that is something for yourself. If not, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace. Yeah.
Coincidence. Yeah. Coincidence.
Yeah.